everyone. My name is Deborah Williams, host of Creators Podcast, a Boundless Media USA production, and we are on our fabulous, I can't believe it already, 32nd episode. And I have a very special and interesting guest with me today. Her name is Danielle Radin. She is a recovery expert coach, podcaster, and author. And I'm going to let her explain more because this is very interesting. Welcome, Danielle. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So let me start out by asking you, what is an abuse recovery coach?
So sometimes when people go through trauma or abusive relationships, they will need a bit more targeted therapy and counseling and coaching to get out of the abusive situation and stay out of it. And so, for a lot of people, their typical marriage and family therapist that they might have been going to for years is not tailored enough to the type of abuse that they suffered. So, that's when people like me, a certified domestic violence counselor or a narcissistic abuse recovery coach, will come in and give that person the added help, because a lot of these toxic and abusive relationships actually go in cycles, and the person can get stuck in the cycle going back to the abusive person over and over again, because the abusive person is promising them that things are going to be different and they're apologizing and they seem legitimate. And so it takes sometimes several attempts to for the victim to pull themselves out of the situation. And it does take an average of 7 to 10 times to leave an abusive relationship.
That is very interesting. I did not know that. So, what made you want to get into helping people recover from abuse?
I come from a background as a news reporter, and I had interviewed quite a few people who were toxic, people who, jailhouse interviews, power struggles, things like that. So I had quite a lot of experience communicating with people who might be a bit more angry, people who don't want to answer your questions. And so I started posting videos online about how to talk to these people who don't want to communicate with you, people who don't want to resolve the fight, people who are in the conversation for the power struggle of it. And one of the videos was how to win an argument with a narcissist. And that one really took off. And after that, I started recording more videos about ways to communicate with narcissists, ways to co-parent with them if you have to, ways to get out of the relationship when you need to, because people didn't have the tools to know that you have to go no contact with somebody who is trying to manipulate you constantly. You have to get that person out of your life if they're starting to drag you down and ruin every aspect of your finances, personal relationships, work life, or otherwise. And so I started getting emails from people based on those videos requesting coaching. They needed help communicating with a co-parent, with a boss, with perhaps a mother-in-law they couldn't talk to, or staying out of a relationship that they were going back to over and over again. And so that is how the coaching side of things started. And now I coach people out of these toxic relationships on 6 continents out of 7, because this is a global epidemic at this point of narcissistic personalities, Some people encounter sociopaths, some people encounter people with narcissistic traits, but they're really, really impacting their life in a negative way, and they need coaching on how to have an exit strategy and ultimately gain their life back.
So, Danielle, let me ask you, what is a narcissist for those who don't know?
A narcissist is a term that a lot of people use nowadays. It has become more public in the last 5 years, and it's an easy term to throw around. But clinically speaking, somebody with narcissistic personality disorder has 5 traits out of 9 total traits in order to be diagnosed. And those are things like delusions of grandeur, an overinflated ego, a lack of empathy, uh, unable to take accountability for their actions, a constant victim mentality, things like that. And so whether the person is a full-blown narcissistic personality disorder type that has the 5 traits out of 9, or it's just somebody with severe narcissistic tendencies, there starts to be a problem when the person is using abusive tactics in order to gain power and control over their victim. So they might use the silent treatment, they might use verbal abuse, they might use intimidation, gaslighting. And so just knowing these terms, knowing what this person is doing, who is oftentimes programmed to try to gain control at every single interaction, is really empowering for the victims and the survivors to understand that it's not personal. They don't deserve any abuse ever. And there are certain communication strategies that you have to implement when trying to speak with these people.
Thank you for that, Danielle. That is very informative. And there are a lot of people out there who don't even realize narcissistic personalities and people even exist. So, in what ways can a narcissist hurt you?
Narcissists, as soon as they come into your life, are immediately trying to take from you. And so there are 4 phases of a narcissistic relationship. The first is when they love bomb you. So they shower you with praise and gifts, and they promise you things. We're going to be so happy. Let's move in together. Let's get married. And they try to trap you quickly because that part is fake and fleeting. And they're trying to get to the next phase of the relationship, which is the devaluation phase. During the devaluation phase, once they feel like they've trapped you in some way in the relationship so that you can't abandon them, they will start to get more and more abusive. So they could trick you into spending all of your money, taking out loans, taking out a mortgage in your name that you can't afford. They can start to isolate you from your friends and family so that you don't have a sounding board. They can sleep deprive you. They will start to stress you out to the point that victims oftentimes get physical ailments. Their hair falls out. They get, heart issues. They get autoimmune diseases flaring up. That all lasts for months or years until the inevitable discard phase. And at the discard phase, the narcissist either breaks up with you, cheats on you, gets with somebody else, leaves the relationship, or forces a reverse discard where they have been acting so brutal and awful towards you that you're forced to break up with them even though you don't really want to. The fourth and final phase of the relationship is called the Hoover phase. And this is the apology phase when they're trying to get you back into the relationship. They might show up at your house. They might send you an email apologizing. It seems sincere. They're trying to rope you back in. And if you say anything to them during that Hoover phase, which it's very hard to stay silent during that phase, but staying no contact is the only way to get out of the cycle, because if you don't, if you re-engage, then you're going back to love bombing, devaluing, discard, Hoover, love bomb, devalue, discard, Hoover. And the cycle tends to go quicker and quicker the more times people are in it. So the first time the love bombing lasted for 2 months, and then as you get into the relationship more and more times, it might last 2 weeks, then it might last 2 hours, and you're immediately back in that devaluing stage. So this is why people have such a tough time getting out of these relationships, because you want to hope against hope that the person changed, that the person is authentic, that the person means what they say when they apologize. But with a narcissistic person, they don't change.
So, a narcissist sounds a lot like an antisocial person. What is the difference between the two?
So, antisocial personality disorder is known in the broader context as a sociopath. A more extreme version is a psychopath. All sociopaths, all psychopaths are narcissists. Not all narcissists are psychopaths. And so the main difference is that with a narcissist, their main motivation is power and control. With a sociopath, you're going to see the main motivation being power and money. So with antisocial personality disorder, you're going to see someone not with a lack of empathy, but with pretty much no empathy. You're going to see somebody engaging in a Ponzi scheme. You're going to see somebody who is defrauding people and sleeping perfectly well at night. This antisocial personality disorder does not care what the repercussions are to other people to an extreme level. Whereas a narcissist is more ego obsessed, image obsessed, reputation obsessed. So they might try to do things to save face that are really detrimental. They'll go on a smear campaign against their victims where they're trying to get ahead and blast the person and smear them so that they lose credibility, so that their own reputation is intact. A sociopath, on the other hand, really doesn't care what other people think about them, but will use their charm and good looks and intellect in order to get money, get ahead, gain power. And if people, lose their jobs or lose their life savings in the process, they don't really care about that.
So, if one of these people, an antisocial person, a narcissistic person, comes into your life, what are the first steps to spotting this type of behavior?
With both of these personalities, they are going to try to love bomb you. They're going to try to trap you into a commitment early on. They're going to be immediately pushing the boundaries to see how much they can get away with you. And so if you're on a third date with somebody and they start to joke, let's get married and we should move in together, and they're assessing what your reaction is. And for a lot of people who haven't been in this relationships, they think that it's this grand gesture, this big romance. It's my moment in my life to have my soulmate or whatever it is. But narcissists and sociopaths, they have many soulmates throughout their life. They do this over and over and over, and they get really good at assessing exactly what's going to work on you. They take the childhood trauma that you told them, your history that you told them, and they use your vulnerabilities to rope you in. They mirror you by reflecting back things that you've told them. Oh, you want 2 kids? I want 2 kids too. What a coincidence. Oh, you like rock and roll music? I love rock and roll music. It's crazy how much we have in common. So it is a fake process that will be revealed if you see them for longer than 3 to 6 months. So I always encourage people, do not get into any commitment that you can't get out of before you know how this person acts when they're severely disappointed or severely angry, because narcissists and sociopaths wear a mask that they can keep up for a few months where things seem perfect. And a lot of people make the mistake of having a baby with them at that point, moving them into the house, eloping, and making these commitments that are very, very tough to get out of, where they immediately regret doing that when the mask slips and they get into the devaluation stage. So, on top of going into these relationships, knowing who you are and saying to yourself, this flattery is nice, these promises are nice, it's nice to hear, I like that, but there needs to be actions behind the words. I don't really know this person. I don't know how this person is when they're sick, when they're disappointed, when they're angry. This person doesn't really know me. I need to take time to get to know that person, make sure I can trust them, make sure that they're dependable, make sure that they show up when they say they're going to show up, make sure that their behavior is lining up with the things that they're telling me. If you do that, it is really, really hard for a narcissist, a sociopath to come into your life. If you put up strong, unapologetic boundaries, hey, we can't be hanging out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I've got work. I've got all these activities. We can see each other once a week in the beginning while we're getting to know each other. But, they're immediately trying to infiltrate your life. And so putting up those boundaries, understanding that the actions need to line up with the words, and then telling them no when you need to, having the relationship go at your pace, you virtually weed out narcissists and sociopaths because they can't get to you. They can't do anything with that. They can only get as far as they get with you because you're not saying no to them, because you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, because you're getting swept up in the fantasy of what they're trying to sell you.
So you wrote a book, Navigating Narcissists, Empowered Communication Strategies. What made you want to write this book, and how did that process come about?
The book is a grouping of a lot of my videos into a comprehensive guide. It's also available as an audiobook. I wanted something that people could read and understand if they maybe can't afford coaching, if they don't have time to sit and listen to videos for hours and hours. It dives into what narcissistic personality disorder is, the different communication tactics. It's got exit strategies. It's got ways to keep these people out of your life. And so it is a comprehensive guide of all of this stuff so that victims and survivors can be empowered to get this person out of their life as much as humanly possible and go on to find a healthy, sustainable, loving relationship. So the Break a Trauma Bond 6-week challenge is for people who are trying to exit these relationships. When you're in a narcissistic relationship, you get trauma bonded to the person. And so trying to get out of the relationship is way more challenging than any other sort of romantic relationship, because when the person's being nice to you, you're getting hits of dopamine. And when they're being abusive or giving you the silent treatment, you're getting flushed with cortisol, the fight or flight hormone. So your brain is going dopamine, cortisol, dopamine, cortisol. You literally get chemically addicted to the highs and lows of this relationship, trying to chase what you had in the beginning, trying to get the relationship back on track, getting ruminating thoughts. People equate it to trying to quit drugs or alcohol when they're coming off of these relationships more than any other romantic breakup. And so that's called a trauma bond. And breaking it requires certain steps, and it takes several weeks or months, sometimes years for some people, to break it and be able to feel like you can move on with your life. So the 6-week challenge is a series of online journal prompts, educational videos, PowerPoints, telling you the exact roadmap of how to break it in 6 weeks or less.
Is there a certain type of person that is more drawn to a narcissistic personality? Do they prey on a certain type of person, low self-esteem, things like that?
Yeah, there's no doubt that if you come from a narcissistic mother or a narcissistic father, that kind of relationship is familiar to you. You're going to be attracting the things that you're familiar with. However, that doesn't mean that it has to be your future. It's just important to understand that that relationship might be, quote, more comfortable, more familiar, and it's something to keep in mind in your dating life. Narcissists are able to prey on the people who don't know about narcissistic personality disorder, the people who don't know what gaslighting is, who don't know what stonewalling is, who don't know what's going on. They prey on people who are vulnerable at a point in their life. They might have been friends with you from a distance for months and years, and they're waiting for their moment where you're vulnerable and you're telling them your insecurities and you're opening up to them. Or they can also prey on people who are very impressive, people who have all their stuff together, they're very successful, they're very beautiful because it makes the narcissist look good. Or they're able to provide the narcissist with finances or a home or money or the clout of dating that person. So it could be a wide range of time periods in your life that they might be able to get further with you than they could if you were aware of narcissistic personality disorder, you had been through it before, or you were in a more stable place in your life where you didn't want a relationship, you didn't invite a person in who is immediately violating your boundaries. But with that said, nobody who's been in these relationships should blame themselves. Nobody should have shame for not seeing it beforehand, because it's really impossible to see what these people are doing unless you have the hindsight of the entire relationship. These people are master manipulators. They've been manipulating people their entire lives since they were kids. They're really, really good at talking. They're really good at understanding who is going to be a good victim, who they can get the farthest with, and when. And a lot of people, they just don't even stand a chance because they don't even know they're supposed to be looking for stuff like that.
Okay, everyone, now it is time for our round of wacky questions where I'm going to ask Danielle just a couple of more questions to get to know a little bit more about her. So let me ask you, Danielle, what is your favorite author? Who is your favorite author, should I say?
Oh, that is such a good one. I am such a book nerd and I read a lot. Right now I'm reading Walden by Thoreau. I love Jane Austen. I love J.D. Salinger. I love the classics, really. Those are my favorite authors. And then as far as narcissism content, you can't beat Dr. Ramani. She is the world expert on this stuff, and her books are very helpful. I also find a very helpful book to be Lundy Bancroft. Why Does He Do That? The Body Keeps the Score is a really good book. So to answer your question, Probably Jane Austen. I always got to go back to Jane Austen. I love Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility. It's just there's such well crafted books, and the movies are really good too.
Okay. So, what is your favorite movie then?
My favorite movie, that is such a tough one. My favorite movie is probably, well, there's different types of favorite movies. There's the one you can watch over and over and over again, and then there's the one that's a cinematic masterpiece. Uh, I really like Christopher Nolan. I was really blown away by Oppenheimer. I love The Dark Knight. I love Dunkirk. Any film by the Coen brothers is really great, like The Big Lebowski, Fargo, and then on top of that, I loved Good Will Hunting. That's a great movie. Um, Anything with Robin Williams, really, Dead Poet Society. I mean, there's so many. I think that if I had to pick one to be my favorite movie, it would probably be, I'm going to go with The Dark Knight.
Okay. What is your zodiac sign?
I am a Sagittarius.
Okay. Do you prefer cats or dogs?
I love both, but I do prefer dogs. I am a dog aunt right now to a long-haired dachshund, and he is so cute. His name is Benny.
Cute. And my final questions for you, Danielle, is do you prefer the sunrise or the sunset?
I definitely prefer the sunset. I've always been a night person and I like to sleep in, so I barely make the sunrise because I'm sleeping, but the sunset is always beautiful.
Okay. So, how can people find you, find your book, sign up for your coaching services? Where are you available?
Yeah, so my book is available on Amazon. My coaching service, you can just email me. It's just my name, Danielle Radin at gmail.com. And I am on TikTok and YouTube.
Okay. Everyone, have a great day out there. Once again, this is Deborah Williams with Creators.